like, okay, it happens in the church first and then it comes out in culture. That's what I'm getting at here.
He got that, Gabe.
In the same way, I was giving them a way out. In the same way, where do you see the secularist mindset happening in the church first before culture?
I think if I could fix one thing in the contemporary American church, it would be that either for fiduciary reasons or a misguided soteriology or theology, we have taken Christ's two preeminent commands, which you guys all know, like are summaries of the 2 tablets of the 10 commandments. Like I'd asked on Twitter yesterday on the flight down here, I don't understand, what does love your neighbor as you love yourself mean? And I quoted back to him the second tablet of the 10 commandments, all right? That's how we deal with one another horizontally. And the first tablet is how we deal with God, him and us individually. What's happened in the modern American church, and we did this either for fiduciary reasons, because it's good for business, or we did it out of a misguided soteriology or theology, is when Jesus said, the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is just like it, to love your neighbors, to love yourself. We've inverted those. And the amount of emails that I get every day, I just read one on my show yesterday. Well, my pastor says we can't talk about this stuff because it'll drive people away from Christ if we do. And that is a practical outcome of that skewed theology, where we are now going to offend God so that we do not risk offending people. And hey, I want to make sure we all understand the second greatest commandment means it's like really important, okay? It's really important that we love our neighbor as we love ourselves, that we do not treat them as an algorithm, as a formula, as a philosophical code to crack, all right? But that they're people, and human nature is not a voter guide. It's a Venn diagram. Great people do terrible things. Terrible people do great things. People do great things for the wrong reasons and terrible things for the right ones. This is the complexity of human nature in a fallen world, right? And that's why that relationship is key with our Lord and then with one another. But at the same token, we cannot worship people. We have to worship God. And I can tell you, as someone who gets paid to communicate to a wide audience every day, and then I help and get paid to help other people that run for office and do other shows like mine on how they can communicate as well. If you can come up with a completely non-threatening, non-offensive way to say, you're a sinner, you want hell, you desire it, you're going to choose it unless God intervenes, all right? All right, and that is where you will go for all eternity unless you believe this one singular truth. If you know of a non-threatening, non-offensive, 100% winsome way to communicate that, by all means, share it with me. I'll get paid even more than I already do for doing this job, all right? It's not possible. Offense is built in. And so what we have to figure out is the churches that do this, do they do this because they have taken Arminianism to the point of honoring Pelagius? And I'm glad I'm in a room where I can mention those names. You guys actually know who I'm talking about, all right? Or because because if so, that's one debate with that group. That's a sincere theological conviction that is skewed and in error that you would address thusly. Or is it because it pays to be a coward? It allows me to build a massive megapolis in the suburbs, my own private Idaho, Protestant monasticism, with churches that look like Pottery Barn outlets, all right? And everybody is a little above average and never upset, okay? It's the Lake Woebegone denomination, all right? And that is the sweater-vested brigade and the skinny pants, right? I was listening to a...
He's talking about you, cookies.
I was listening to a sports podcast while lifting yesterday, and I kid you not, one of the hosts attacked the other host for dressing like a youth pastor on a sports podcast.
Oh.
Our own stereotypes and our own tropes from the church growth consultants who all ought to be Viking funeraled, all right? This has become such a crossover trope that even the secular sports world is like, yeah, we know what that fake uniform
That's
is.
gay.
That's gay. That's fake and gay. We even know that, all right? And so I think that we've got to put God back in the place of primacy where he belongs, and we have to hold our own accountable to, are you just taking Arminianism to the point that he would be like, dude, you need to seriously stop and maybe read Calvin more? Or Or are you just a commercialized fraud, all right, that is peddling a pseudo life coach religion with Bible verses and creating false converts? And in that case, then the sheep need to confront the wolves.
Gabe, put another quarter in.
Every time we get them. Every time we get them.
A master called together a few young men of this generation and spoke to them, saying, I gave your great-grandfathers a time of despair and poverty and global war. They were strong and victorious and built an empire greater than any other. But they were terrible fathers and raised entitled sons and daughters of rot who inherited everything through no courage of their own. To those rotten sons, your own grandfathers, I gave abundance and wealth and stability. But they pissed it all away on debauchery and sexual revolution, establishing many idols and slaughtering tens of millions of children in sacrifice to their appetites. One generation fought against the perpetrators of a great Holocaust. The next dishonored that victory with an even greater Holocaust of their own children. The children who did survive, your fathers, carried on the sexual descent of their parents into new madness and new disease, piercing and inking their skin like death-worshipping pagans as they did, establishing special days of pride to celebrate the debauch, slaughtering more children and castrating and poisoning others, claiming to be creators when they were destroyers, mutilating the young and calling it acceptance. All these generations I have judged, and am judging. Their madness now is only a taste of my wrath. The young men were afraid and asked the master why he had called them and why he was telling them these things. Because it is now your turn. I am giving all of this chaos to you, he said. Your inheritance is a world of crumbling false gods crowded with blind and mad worshippers. I am entrusting you with a world of empires built on cracked and heaving foundations. The time of your inheritance is near. You have only a little while to prepare yourselves. Seize this moment of chaos and build me a world of sanity and righteousness. When I return, I will judge what you have built for me. With so much rubble to work with, I expect great things. The master turned to leave, but the young men begged him to wait. How can we do this, they asked. There are hundreds of millions of unbelievers in our nation alone and only a few of us. Their master answered, saying, I am not a hard master. You will have the truth and wisdom if you desire it. And you may each choose one woman to help you. That should be enough. Go now and build New St. Andrews College. Carpe Chaos.
Hangers. Oh, we're already live. I didn't get the countdown or nothing.
Good thing it's not dependent on you.
I guess not. I was looking for the 3, 2, 1.
Traditionally, you usually do, but you know.
You're just feeling it. You're feeling it that good.
When you're on the same team, sometimes you just know when your partner does this, it's like, okay, I know what the time is. I
got it.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to Cross Politics on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Good to be with you. It's Beer and Psalms Wednesday.
You just need to change it to beer and bourbon.
Beer and bourbon. I'm doing bourbon today because my voice since basketball season started is just gone down every month. It's not healing, and so I'm doing scotch today. Help with the.
I think you should just do one basketball game, all hand signs.
This is not going to be a.
I can't do it. The girls I coach girls varsity, and on the side I'm like sound like a barking mouse. That's it.
It's just like a typical show.
Be quiet.
It's like a typical show we do. Just
Gabe's a barking mouse.
Is this going to be an interfaith psalm in beer thing?
This is Psalm 76, right?
Yeah. Interfaith.
I'm still upset about that.
I like how you just like turned up the volume all of a sudden. You ask an infuriating question.
Hey,
like,
mute Toby.
If there's if a Muslim call to prayer, I'm switching up everything. I'm throwing the tables over. I'm just
I was a little wondering about what your hat was on.
No.
Is that like one of them, imam kind of hats?
No. Clothes belong to Jesus.
Oh, okay.
It was his idea. He gave them to us. They don't get to own clothes.
Oh, okay. All right. Just double checking.
Yeah.
Business owners, is your company struggling to grow? What if I told you that the right employee could grow your business by 5, 10, or even 25%? You would be crazy not to take that deal, right? That's exactly what Red Balloon Recruiter offers. A personalized source and screen process connects you with top talent, increasing revenue and reducing costs. Visit redballoon.work today. That's redballoon.work, and transform your hiring. Are you concerned your child's current education won't give them the skills necessary to succeed in any area of life? By applying the classical Christian model of education, the Classical Conversations curriculum encourages students to learn how to learn and how to think for themselves so they can adapt to every challenge life throws at them. classicalconversations.com/FLF. That's classicalconversations.com/FLF.
I just want to say that Robert's been with us since 2017 or something.
Yeah.
The Classical Conversations has been
almost from
supporter
jump.
since then.
Yeah.
Our
And
first
if, you,
sponsor.
and if you guys don't know, I mean, there's so much duct tape that holds up what we do. And Robert,
know.
Robert bought the first roll of duct tape for us.
He's bought a lot of duct tape.
Yeah, a lot of duct tape.
He's bought a lot
Lot
of duct tape. Thanks,
so
Robert.
we are grateful to have 3 guests coming on today.
Yes,
3
yes.
guests. I'm gonna see if I can get them all in here. We got Mr. Brent Money. He's a 6th generation Texan. Oh, I see what's going on here.
Promised
Gabe.
land.
He's an attorney. He's a businessman dedicated to serving his community in Northeast Texas, where he has held positions such as city attorney, city council member. Committed to the principles of faith, family, and service, he aims to represent his constituents in Austin with integrity and a focus on common sense Texas values. Well, you better say yeehaw or something, I guess.
Deep in the heart of Texas,
Yes, he's about to
with
get
the biggest sign behind
He's
him.
about to get that cross politics.
We looked for a bigger one, but there wasn't one.
Brent, thanks for joining us on Cross Politic.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. And we're also grateful to have Brandon Shippey appointed to the Idaho Senate on July 18th, 2024. He's a native of the Western Treasure Valley, where he and his wife, Raquel, are raising their 3 children, and an entrepreneur, community volunteer. He's committed to serving his constituents through his strong work ethic and conservative values. Great to have you on.
And we're working on getting him a sign.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You need a.
That's our fault.
Yeah,
It's us. It's us. We don't have it for you. We're going to get you one.
a big sign behind him. It says
Idaho.
the state of Idaho. Right. That's what he needs too. Bradley Pierce also coming on. He's a constitutional attorney, the president of the Foundation to Abolish Abortion, as well as the vice president of Heritage Defense. He's drafted legislation in over 30 states advocating for self-defense, parental rights, civil liberties, and the right to life, including significant contributions to equal protection bills aimed at abolishing abortion. He's a devoted Christian, married to Cindy, is a father to 12 children. Is that up a couple?
12?
Is that up a couple since the last time, Bradley?
You know, every time I come on here, I got to get those numbers up. So yeah, we're excited number 12 right now.
That is awesome. I'm glad you do that for us.
I got to
He's also active participant in Reformed Baptist Church in Central Texas, and Bradley's been on the show a number of times. We always appreciate having you on, so thanks for coming back on, Bradley.
Thanks for having me. Great to be with y'all.
Yeah,
Bradley destroyed my trust in the Republican Party.
Oh, really?
Yes,
It's
remember
his fault?
the first time Bradley
I
came
thought the
on.
Republican Party did that the whole by
Well,
themselves.
this is years ago. This is maybe 2017. Bradley, you've been coming on the show for a long time. But I remember you were the one. Yeah, it was a good while ago. But you broke it to me that it was the Republican Supreme Court justices that gave us, or the conservative Supreme Court justice that gave us Roe v. Wade.
That's right.
And
yeah,
as much as we talk about this,
that gave us Roe v. Wade were Republican appointees. Yep.
Yeah, Bradley, would you lean into your microphone? Your gate's kicking you out a little bit. I don't know.
Will do. I'll
Yeah.
work on that.
Lean hard into it.
Yeah, you got,
So
like,
don't-
like you're a rock star, man.
Yeah.
Like you're a rock star.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Well, so we got some bills in the wings, right? I don't know. Where are we gonna start, Gabe? You gonna start with Texas or you gonna start with Idaho?
Well, I scheduled Brent Money on first,
Yeah.
so let's start in Texas and then let's move to Idaho
Because you think
Whatever.
Texas is better.
I'm just giving them. Yeah, I love Idaho too. Don't do that to me.
All right.
Don't-
Good. Just checking.
Don't
All right.
split my loves.
We split all over the place.
My love. You know.
Stop it.
Doc's got nothing to say about that.
No,
You
nothing.
just
nothing
did
at
it
all.
live on the show.
Yeah. All right.
So let's start in Texas. I'd love to hear.
Yeah. Well,
Go ahead.
I want to say part of my heart is in Idaho. I've got a daughter. You didn't mention my family. You mentioned everybody else's family, but I got a wife and 5 kids, and And one of my daughters is at NSA right now as a freshman.
Nice.
And so part of my heart is up there close to you guys right now.
Absolutely.
Nice,
yeah. He's like, I got 5 kids.
Yeah, I got 5.
I got
Way
5
to
kids.
go.
I got a basketball team. Bradley's got a football team.
Yeah.
Wow, we got a lot of kids between all of us.
I think we're going to win.
That's right. Amen.
So talk to us about what's going on in Texas.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. In Texas, I would say most Texans and most people across the country think that Texas has eradicated abortion. That's certainly what the news media is telling us. And in Texas, I think Bradley,
Let him believe it. Let him believe it.
But the sad thing is the abortionists have found a way, and so the human sacrifice is still needs. It still moves forward, and so we're in a situation where our code describes an individual as a human being who's alive, including an unborn child, at every stage of gestation from fertilization until birth, which is fantastic, right? Like that's great. We have defined an individual the same way God does, and then we have outlawed abortion and called it murder throughout our code. But then we have a section that says that this doesn't apply to conduct committed by the mother of the unborn child, which means, every abortion that is committed by a mother alone is classified by Texas law as nothing. It's not murder. It's not wrong.
So does that cover like the pill? Would it even cover like if she, so would it cover every way a mother could kill her own baby?
And with a time limit, does it give it a time limit too, or is this like no up until birth?
There's no time limit. So every abortion in Texas is completely and totally illegal and criminal unless the mother does it all by herself, and then it's nothing.
Okay.
Am I right, Bradley?
Yeah.
And so that's it really is just this astonishing exception that kind of guts the whole rule. And it leaves women vulnerable to coercion, to pressure, and to all kinds of difficulties as they try to navigate through somewhat unplanned pregnancies. And we need to love them more and care for them more by using the law as a teacher for what is right and wrong, and give them the truth.
Bradley, you've been working in Texas for a long time.
He lives in Texas.
Well, I know, but you've been working to end abortion in Texas in particular. I know you work on other states as well, but talk to us about. You've been in this fight for a while. Talk to us about the progress that's been made, and then what's the plan here now, given this state of affairs?
Yeah, so once Dobbs got overturned, a lot of people thought. Once Dobbs overturned Roe versus Wade, people around the country and in states that have passed pro-life legislation, most Republican pro-life voters thought, all right, hey, the work is done here, right? We're all celebrating. That's what we've been trying to do for 49 years at that point, is overturn Roe versus Wade. We did that, so hey, we can brush our hands off and move on to the next issue. And that's what we've encountered throughout Texas, is that most, Christians, most Republicans, most pro-life voters think that the work is done. Texas is abortion free, and so we can move on. But what the reality is that virtually the same number of Texas babies are being aborted now as were being aborted prior to Roe versus Wade being
Brad,
overturned,
where are you getting
if
that
not
statistic?
more.
Where are you getting
if
that
not
statistic?
More. So it comes from a few different sources. There's some studies showing that they're coming from abortion pills. So women are still ordering abortion, or they come in a couple of different ways, right? There's abortion travel, right? Women going to other states. There's only so much that Texas can do about that. There's about 35,000 of that, and that's coming from those other states that are reporting the numbers of women that are coming to those states and where they're coming from, so we can kind of track that back to Texas.
You say 35,000?
35,000
are leaving the state to get an abortion, and that's reported, let's say, by Arkansas saying, hey, we did this many abortions from people living in Texas or whatever.
Right, like New Mexico, Kansas, Illinois, and all that. So they're all reporting that. And then on top of that, we have data from the abortion pill providers that are not in Texas, that are outside of Texas, that are reporting to different people doing studies and reports. They're reporting the number of abortion pills that they're shipping, and then the percentage of those that are being taken. And we're seeing that between 20 and 30,000 of those, it was 20 initially, but it's getting closer to 30 now. 30,000 of those are happening every year in Texas, that women in Texas are ordering the pills like Amazon.com, right? Just going online, ordering the pills, getting them delivered to their home, and having a do-it-yourself abortion right there in their own home on Texas soil.
How is Amazon reporting that data? I mean, like, how is the abortion pill data being reported?
It's not Amazon. I just kind of use that as as an example. But the abortion pill providers are reporting that to researchers who are then publishing it.
So then, with all that said, and just so I'm hearing this correct, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, the same amount of abortions that were happening prior are happening right now. They're just different.
That's right. In fact, they're actually, what we're seeing across, there's 14 states that have abortion bans from conception. But again, they all, like Brent was talking about, have these exceptions for the mother. They don't apply to the mother. And we're seeing that total babies being aborted from those states is actually higher. And nationwide, the total abortion numbers nationwide are higher now than they have been in over 10 years.
How are the abortion pill providers not guilty under Texas state law? So the mom's not guilty because she can take the pill, do whatever they want, but the abortion pill providers sent them the medication, so they're involved.
Right.
But it's requested from the
Yeah, if they showed up in Texas, then they could be arrested. Yeah, because they could be arrested for providing the pills, violating the chemical abortion ban, violating the abortion, aiding and abetting an abortion. They could be arrested, but they're not. They're in other states that have passed laws that protect them, called shield laws, that then protect them from being extradited into Texas.
I got a stupid question here, Bradley. So let's say that I ordered some drugs. Now, the drug dealer is not in the state.
Like cocaine.
Like
and
Silk Road. Through Silk Road's website or something.
Some methamphetamines and stuff like that. Wouldn't I be thought to be guilty for having those drugs that do those horrible things? And I would be charged by that. How does that not apply to the abortion pill?
You would be in possession of drugs, and that normally does carry a criminal penalty. But in this case, even the bans on abortion-inducing drugs, even those are written. They say this doesn't apply to the mother. So the mother, it's not illegal for the mother to order it, not illegal for them to possess it, and it's not illegal for them to take it to murder their own children.
So then what's the bill then that you guys are trying to put forth that would then put all this to an end?
Yeah, and so the bill is pretty simple. It repeals Section 19.06 of the Penal Code in Texas, which just plainly says that this chapter, the homicide chapter, does not apply to the death of an unborn child if the conduct is committed by the mother of the unborn child. So right now it says if the mother is the one that kills the baby, the homicide chapter does not apply. And if anybody else does, it's homicide. And so what we are doing is just repealing that one exception and allowing it to be treated like anybody else.
Have you guys tried this before?
Yeah. So I'm new. This is my first session, but this will be the fifth session that a bill like this has been filed. Some of those obviously were pre-Dobbs, so they were more complicated and kind of farther out there in the realm of the possible. Now we have the freedom and ability as a state to set our own laws and rules. And so this will only be the second session since Dobbs that we are able to actually handle this and really try to get some momentum on it.
I'd like to bring Brandon in here. Brandon, talk to us a little bit about what you're planning to do and the situation in Idaho.
This is my first session as well. I was appointed back in July, so it's technically my second term here in the Idaho Senate, but it's my first session. So I'm an inexperienced legislator. I don't know how many years it's been since there has been a bill run for equal protection. I don't think there has been one post Dobbs, honestly. So this would be the first one. There usually are a handful of pro-life bills dealing with various issues. We have I'm trying to think of what it's called, but basically it's an abortion ban here in Idaho, and it does several things that I do think is really problematic. It dehumanizes the baby in the womb, and it also dehumanizes the mother. And part of the reason it does that, number one, it shields her from any prosecution under any circumstance. That's in our new abortion code, which really doesn't even consider it as a homicide. That was also in our older homicide code as well. That's been around for, I think, 25, 30 years in Idaho. And but what it does is it provides a different layer of penalties for an abortion doctor who has performs an abortion. I think it's up to 5 years maximum. So you're talking penalties of protected animals, maybe at the most, and then blanket immunity for the mother, which denies her moral agency and I believe denies her humanity under the law. So it does several things like that. That's really problematic. It also has a rape and incest exception, which then says that external circumstances can determine your worth or value or lack of. And ultimately, at the end of the day, all our abortion laws are built on the faulty premise that the legislature has the authority in Idaho to assign value to human life or to remove that said assigned value. And ultimately, that's the fundamental issue that I'm seeking to fix. With the help of Bradley Pierce, we drafted some legislation that would essentially provide the equal protection for the baby in the womb, the preborn child, to the same protections that you and I here in Idaho are afforded and enjoy. And that's what we need to do. We have to fix it at the root issue. There is another senator wanting to run some legislation to remove the rape exception. But the problem is it continues to work under that same premise that the legislature has the authority to grant the right to life or to assign value, and all that legislation does is it assigns value to the baby conceived in rape, but that doesn't fix the heart of the issue, which is to say that that God has given every human being the right to life. They are all created in His image and deserve to be treated equally, and that is actually in our U.S. Constitution and here in our Idaho Constitution as well, that everyone is endowed by the Creator with equal rights and deserve to be protected equally. And so this really takes a fundamental different approach, and we have the constitutional authority to do this rather than just a whim, essentially, is where our abortion laws are currently.
So, Brandon, in Idaho, the current law in Idaho, is it a heartbeat bill or is it?
It's a ban.
It's a ban on abortion. Is that what it is?
But it just has exceptions, like he's talking about.
And then, so you're wanting to take those exceptions out. What language are you trying to use or wanting to use in your legislation to fix that problem?
Yeah, and so Bradley's the attorney here, but I'll do my best. Essentially, before the current abortion ban laws that we have here, all the pro-life laws that have been passed in the number of in the past 10 years or so, we have in our homicide code that the baby in the womb is equally human and to be protected equally as you and I. And in fact, if a man were to murder a pregnant woman, he gets 2 counts of murder, and that's yes. Proper, that's just. But then in our homicide code, it says that there's blanket immunity for some homicides if the ones who commit that homicide are the mother or a doctor that's hired by the mother. And
does it call it a homicide?
It's in homicide code, yes. So it's horrible. But then what we've done is we've gone in there and created a bunch of other laws that we're trying to dodge the courts during the Roe versus Wade era, And so they go in and they're basically regulating it, trying to chip away. And so they had a bunch of trigger laws, of course, that they passed, which we did not need, but a lot of the politicians needed to have these trigger laws because they could be voting for pro-life legislation and look really good to their constituents, but they didn't have any teeth. In fact, there have been folks who have now retired from the Senate who have come out and apologized for supporting them because they didn't ever believe that these laws would ever be enacted, but they were trigger laws. So once Roe versus Wade was overturned, the laws were in effect, and now there are several legislators, probably a number of them, that would like to see some of these laws rolled back to include health of the mother and various other exceptions as well.
Who came out and said they regret voting for trigger laws? They didn't know they would ever come into effect.
So former Senator Patty Lodge was one of them that has come out, and there are others as well that have expressed a little bit of regret for supporting him, and even admitted that they didn't really believe that ultimately that they would have to deal with them. This was more just something that they would pass, and it was pro-life, which at the end of the day, it's unjust, and I can't support it at all. And in fact, I've already been very open with all the other legislators up here that if they try to run other pro-life legislation that has elements of injustice in them, I'm not opposed to incrementalism, but I'm opposed to unjust incrementalism where you codify in law and perpetuate lies about the equal inherent humanity of the preborn children. We have no constitutional authority here in Idaho to do those things. We have no authority from God to do those things as civil government. And yet often we'll see legislators continue to do that, even ones who are named by the name of Christ. And yet they have no authority from God or constitutional authority to do these things. They just have, I guess, authority from the people in the moment. And that's not how we operate as a representative, a constitutional republic.
Bradley, anything to add on the Idaho side of things? You're helping craft the legislation. Anything to add on the situation here in Idaho as far as the legislation goes?
It's very similar, to kind of what's going on. It's the same thing in Texas and in a lot of other states, right? We already have it, that killing a child in the womb is defined as murder, is defined as homicide. Texas, Idaho, and Oklahoma, other states. But then there's this except, even though it's technically murder, mothers get a free pass, right? Mothers get, no matter how, just like, Cecil Richards, the president of Planned Parenthood, died the other day. And I was pointed out to somebody, even if she were to actually get an abortion in Texas or Idaho or one of these states, the law says even she could not be prosecuted, even though obviously she knows exactly what she's doing.
She's just a clump of cells anyway, so.
Yeah, clump of cells. That's right.
Not anymore.
Well, here's one other thing about these bills is that a lot of people talk about women being coerced into an abortion, and certainly that does happen. But one of the things that these bills do that the pro-life, establishment bills have not done is actually deal with that the way that you should, because it's not illegal to pressure someone into something that's legal for them to do. Right, you can't force them into it, threaten them with life or limb, but you can pressure people to do things that are legal for them to do. So as long as we keep it legal for women to do it in Texas, Idaho, everywhere else, then we're actually keeping it legal to pressure them into that. But by making it homicide for everyone, right? We're not the ones singling out the mother.
It clarifies.
The pro-life bills single out the mother. We're just taking that away. We're saying it applies to everyone. When you do that, now if a man, pimp, boyfriend, whoever tries to pressure her into that, now he's soliciting a murder, and you can prosecute him for that. And if it happens, now you can prosecute him as a party to murder as well. So it protects the women as well from coercion.
And keeping it connected to the normal homicide criminal law also means that all the normal due process is in place.
It's all there.
So
you need witnesses,
right?
You need,
all the due process is in place, including for things like if there's been pressure placed on. I mean, that would be taken into account by a criminal prosecution.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
But why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be? We've always done things like that.
Well,
you know what I mean? People act like, oh, we're not going to continue to follow the law in that way. That's the tradition. We've always done that.
Yeah,
Right?
there's a presumption of innocence. You got to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
Absolutely.
You know, there's a
We have to
whole lot of
work
due process protections.
Yeah, we have to work so hard to say, guys, we're going to follow the law with this. You're killing a baby.
Knox, this is yeah, you're right. But that's because this is a sacred altar to a false god.
That's
right. And so they scream and they shriek.
That's right.
And they accuse you of all kinds of evil things because
my
they got to protect their false gods.
Because they're kicking and screaming and shrieking, we act like that because we're being reasonable that they're going to be because of it. And that's just the only thing I want to push back.
Yeah.
This isn't an argument that wins them to say, oh, well, you're going to be reasonable. I'm in. You know what I mean? I agree with everything you're saying, but we're talking about people who are going to destroy the most innocent human beings on the planet. And then we act like if we can show them we're being reasonable, then they're like, oh, well, in that case, I'm all in.
I think this is one of the key places where a lot of Joe Rigney stuff applies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sin of empathy.
Yeah. This is the sin of empathy, and this is emotional sabotage.
Yeah.
And where your sacred center is, I mean, it's most sacred here. I mean, this is
you're right.
This is the sacrament of secularism. This is the sacrament of feminism and egalitarianism. This is the sacrament of the revolution, all the social cultural Marxism. I mean, this is the sacrament of it right here.
And they're manipulating you by saying, oh, this poor woman.
Right. Yeah.
That's how they're getting
You just want to take them and throw them in jail.
You need to make sure that she can murder her baby because I feel bad for
Otherwise, her life will be terrible.
And you should feel bad
you're
for
going to
her,
destroy her life.
That's right.
And so and I think Americans and a lot of Christians have
Fall
been
for it.
absolutely manipulated,
That's right.
and it's emotional sabotage.
Bradley, my question. So my big concern here is not the fact I want to end abortion and all that, but my big concern on this side of ending abortion has always been handing this over to the judges who allowed abortion for 40 years, who allowed the blood of abortion. So let's say in Idaho, we end abortion, we get rid of even the exceptions and all that stuff.
Is it handing over to a judge though?
Well,
this is legislation.
The judge is going to, no. If it ends, now the judge has to prosecute, or the judge has to judge clearly, yeah, she murdered the baby, or this pimp helped her murder the baby, whatever.
You're saying they get to define how the law gets applied.
That's what a judge does.
That's what a judge does.
Right.
But like he just oversaw abortion for 50 years in America. He's got blood on his hands just as much as America as a covenant nation has blood on our hands.
But if he's been defining it the way that the law has been applied, which is my point, then he's been following the law.
Yeah. I'm sure as soon as you pass the law, it's going to get challenged in court, but
bring it on.
But I mean,
yeah.
Go ahead, Bradley.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Dobbs said though that states can do this, right? I mean, that was one of the holdings of Dobbs is that states are free to regulate abortion the way that they so choose. And so
thank you.
So I mean, okay, that's what we're going to do then. And so that's what's going on here. Thankfully there are a lot of great judges out there. There are a lot of great judges who do uphold the law, who do enforce the law. And I know that we'll enforce this. And so I'm not really worried about that. Yeah, there's certainly some activist judges out there, but there's a lot of great ones that will definitely uphold this.
And don't we vote judge?
Yeah, go ahead,
Bradley. Don't we vote judges in and out?
Depends on the states.
It depends on the states.
Okay. Well,
some states do. Yeah. Some states are appointed and all that. Yeah.
Maybe we need to figure out how to get judges voted in and out in every state.
Well, some states, even where they're appointed, there's recall elections. So if they don't do a good job, you can take them out.
Okay.
Get them out.
Okay.
So Brad.
I got so many questions.
And then Brandon. President Trump. I think he knowingly did this. I don't see why he wouldn't. When he signed into executive order, not the law, when he signed into executive order, can you bring it up on the screen, about the male and female executive order saying that, a male's a male, a female's a female. Well, one of the things he did was say that person begins at conception. Female begins at conception. Male begins at conception. Now, I know this is executive order. It's not law. And Bradley, I want your take on that here in a minute, but I want to start with
Mr. Money.
Mr. Money on this. How does this maybe help your argument in a conservative legislator session who's supposedly being MAGA and pro-Trump and all that?
Yeah, I think it's consistent with what really the law and biology has always told us. There's really there's this cultural idea that the left tried to push on us for the past 50 something years, that this was just a clump of cells and kind of questioning personhood. But Texas law is clear. It sounds like Idaho law is clear. Most state laws are clear. Biology, if you talk even with secular biologists, they will tell you that life begins at conception. That's where you have separate DNA. You have a completely different human being in every sense. And so what President Trump has done here for our movement is to recognize again, anew, what has always been the case. And it's something recent that we can point to. In Texas, Trump won by 14 points. In Idaho, I think he won by a larger amount than that. So going to other Republican legislators and saying, even President Trump, who is not the most pro-life president that we would all want to have, has acknowledged that at conception, we have a distinct human being who is alive and worthy of the protection, the equal protection under the laws of the United States, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so I think it's great that happened this week. It's something we can point to this week, while Trump has just been dominating the news cycle with all of these awesome executive orders, making things right that have been wrong, that he defined this in that way.
Brandon?
I'm not so sure that it helps me at all in what I'm doing here. I would appreciate obviously appreciate him doing that. But as far as I believe in Idaho, it defines conception as being in utero. I think that's part of our abortion ban laws, which doesn't do anything for the babies in IVF, which unfortunately Trump has come out in very much supportive of IVF, which kills way more preborn children than abortion even. That's a Holocaust in and of itself. But does this particular executive order help me? I doubt it. Honestly, you talk to anybody here, any pro-life Republican, and we're a super majority, they're all going to agree already that life begins at conception. They would waffle a little bit on fertilization. I prefer the term because, like I said, I think it's wrongly defined in our Idaho code. And so I think there are some problems there.
Now, Bradley, it's executive order, but what does it mean? What does it really mean in terms of his executive order?
I mean, as far as the issue that it's on, I mean, it's, awesome. I'm glad. Yeah, there's only male and female, and yeah, that begins at conception, which is fertilization, right? That's what I would say. As far as this issue of abortion, what I would say is whichever one of his, whoever wrote that, whichever one of his staffers wrote that, it's like, hey, now go do abortion, right? Now go do that to abortion, because whoever that is, they're on the right trail there.
Because in one sense, I mean, executive order, it only really applies to the federal jurisdiction that he has and, the federal bureaus, all that stuff. So does it mean that each federal bureau and department has to acknowledge this in their efforts?
Yeah, it means that all the federal agencies, they have to recognize only two genders, and that those genders begin at conception.
I mean, I think
that's fun.
Yeah. Fun. That's the word for it. But I mean, there's a, as we've frequently mentioned in this abortion discussion, but even with regard to this, there is a pedagogical, a teaching element,
a bully pulpit
to law.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think even this, and people noticed right away, and it's getting spread around. There's an Overton window kind of thing here, pushing things where it's like, which is one of the things that Trump has done well in a number of respects.
Well, and honestly, that point gives a lot of, let's say, conservative legislators who are maybe a little cowardly or maybe a little waffling on this, strengthen them and gives them courage.
That's right. And that's what I'm just thinking. So I think there's kind of a bully pulpit element to this, but it's just pushing the Overton window, the acceptable discourse.
Yeah.
I think it's, I think sometimes maybe we probably differ a little bit on exactly how this works in terms of some of the incremental legislation versus the complete abolition legislation. But I think the basic principle of really pushing, like, no, we need to defend these lives. These are human beings made in the image of God. The more we're able to talk about that, the more we're able to advertise that, promote that. I see that as doing a lot of good in discipling people to think more clearly about this and think courageously about this, not in cowardly ways.
Yeah.
So, gents, I'm thinking here, we got two bills we're trying to pass in conservative states that Trump won, that are pro-life states that we have the upper hand in, right? Am I correct in understanding?
Well, in Idaho, we have a super majority.
Okay.
Texas is probably some sort of majority, but not super.
Right. So this legislation, let's start in Texas and move our way to Idaho. This legislation shouldn't be that hard to get. This bill shouldn't be that hard to get passed, right?
Man, I hope that you're right. We can pray toward that end. This is still a heavy lift. It's hard for people to understand when they have been kind of catechized for the past few decades of pro-life rhetoric that the mother is always a victim, all the things that we talked about at the beginning. And so I think that what Toby just said is so important. The law is a teacher. The law tells people what is right and what is wrong. And one of the things that I've talked with some of my fellow legislators about is if you are sitting with a woman who is trying to decide whether or not to have an abortion, would you not, as a loving Christian man or woman, whoever whoever is talking to, say to that woman, you please do not commit murder. You are going to murder this child that God has created in his own image and given life to you, and you have been given stewardship of that life. Please do not commit murder. You would tell them that. If a woman has already committed a murder and she is going through the things emotionally and spiritually that people go through when they have abortion, would you not tell them, if you confess if you confess your sins, he is faithful and just to forgive you and cleanse you from all unrighteousness. Go to the Lord, go to the foot of the cross and ask forgiveness for the murder that you have committed. We would say that lovingly with all of the tenderness in our heart. As lawmakers, we have an opportunity to send that same message out across Texas, across Idaho, and give the law as a teacher of what is right and wrong. And we need to take that seriously. We need to do it lovingly, gently, humbly, but boldly, as we would if we were trying to save that life of that child on the front end.
Senator Shippey?
Could you repeat the question?
No, I'm saying you shouldn't have a whole lot of opposition, right? Because you have
we're a conservative state. We're a
super
conservative
majority.
state.
You got super majority.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be that hard to get changed out.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, compromise is the standard, and so when compromise is the standard, you will never pursue the truth. And this is where I probably will differ with some smash mouth incrementalists. Is that I don't believe I'm free to compromise. I have to drive a stake in the ground and set a standard by which everything else is judged. If I have the freedom to compromise on any legislation that I will support or bring, I will always bring the easier legislation. We have a large LDS population in our legislature. They religiously and theologically believe in the rape exception, the health of the mother exception, incest, and so forth. They religiously believe in that. Their prophet has ruled on that. They're not going to be persuaded to come to my side of things by just winning them over with coming time after time. I'm trying to chip away because they're going to hold to their position on that. I think the only way that we can win them is a genuine constitutional principled argument saying that every human being is created in the image of God and is worthy of life, and the laws to be applied equally. In fact, I've been actually having conversations with our Attorney General and some of his staff members about this, trying to get their opinion on what we're doing. And they're acknowledging to me that my legislation is the most moral, consistent legislation on this issue. And some of the concerns that are being brought up right now is that there are going to likely be some ballot measures to try to legalize abortion in Idaho, and that my legislation could harm the effort of pro-lifism in Idaho. The problem is how I'm pushing back on that. I don't believe that my legislation is going to harm the so-called progress in Idaho at all. Number one, if we don't drive a stake in the ground and set the standard of what truth is, we're going to continue to move left. We're going to continue to move towards death. And so if somebody doesn't drive that stake in the ground and set a standard, I don't believe we have a chance in the long run. And number one, I don't believe it's honoring to God. But if I have an option to run easier legislation and chip away, and I would call compromise legislation that would dehumanize the baby in the womb, I'm never going to run the harder legislation. And beyond that, if I'm running one and then running the other, I show myself to be inconsistent anyhow as I bring the arguments. Why should they support this bill that provides protection for some babies, and then I try to bring one that brings protections for all? But what arguments am I going to bring? I have to bring different arguments and different standards, and so I can only run one type of legislation and no other. I either have to be a compromised pro-lifer or I have to be a full-blown abolitionist. I don't see there's any in between. So that's I guess where I'm coming from.
Well, I guess to push that further, it's like, why won't Idaho get on that? You mentioned the Mormon population might be some difficulty there, but don't we even have, let's say, enough, kind of conservative, even conservative Christians senators that would get that at least out of the Senate?
Yeah. So number one, I think the LDS have a better justification for opposing my legislation than the evangelical or Protestant Christians. And the Protestant Christians, I find, are actually siding as well with them. So you have the Idaho Chooses Life. David Ripley heads that up. He told me personally yesterday, I'm going to call him out right here, that he would oppose my legislation in committee if there was an opportunity, if it goes to committee hearing.
Why?
He believes in the rape exception. He doesn't believe that it should be under that a woman should be able to get an abortion if she was raped, and that shouldn't be under homicide code. And he's got his reasons. He's been in this so much longer than I have, and so it's an interesting conversation. But he will oppose that, and he's kind of the pro-life guru here in the Capitol. So a lot of even the non LDS legislators would probably look to him as kind of the standard. But even I would say we have probably 2/3 are LDS. So, they carry a lot of weight around here. I think they're pretty conservative on a lot of issues. And so, I think that's a blessing to Idaho on one hand, but on the other hand, we have to uphold the Constitution, the constitutional authority that we have to protect all life and not just some as we please as the legislature. The argument that I try to make with my LDS colleagues here in the Senate and even in the House is that they believe in the inspiration of the Constitution. And so let's look to that standard. They believe in the inspiration of the Constitution. They revere the Constitution. Let's look to that standard then as we apply laws. You can apply in your church how your prophet standards, but in law we have to look to the Constitution to apply it equally to all human beings. Since that's been my message to them, and a lot of them recognize it and recognize the inconsistency. Whether or not I win them, that's up to the Lord, but that's where we're at here.
Brandon, what committee is your bill likely to be submitted to?
It has to go through Senate State Affairs. So that's the committee that any abortion bill, any hot topic in Idaho is going to go through. I am on State Affairs. It's a leadership committee, but I fortunately was placed on there as well, even as a freshman. So that was pretty cool.
So what likelihood do you have of your bill
getting to the floor for debate?
Actually, well, even just getting
out of
a hearing into the committee.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so the most of the debate would happen in a full hearing, and the floor is only when the senators can debate. Right now, I'm trying to get a print hearing. I've been promised, but that all Republicans would get a print hearing for their bills. That has been a promise that we're. So I'm going to hold them to that, hold leadership to that. But we will see if that happens. That hasn't happened yet. we're still in meetings and working through it. They recognize that once you have a print hearing, it's out there, and they really would not like to have a full committee hearing, which I would love to have, because then you get public testimony and we really get to bring this out into the open and have these conversations. Right now, there's just no heart to deal with this big of an issue in Idaho, unfortunately.
So it seems like, Bradley, we have potential win in Texas. We have more hope there, it seems like, than we do in Idaho. Is that what I'm reading? It seems like that's where we're going to go.
I mean, I'm a Texan. I'd love to think that we're going to go a long way this session, and we've definitely made progress, and I'm hoping for a lot more. But what we've heard here, from Brandon, is something that we've experienced with all the abolition bills that we've been a part of filing around the country. That they are ultimately opposed by pro-life organizations, pro-life politicians, even just this morning. So we're getting bills drafted and ready for legislators around the country. We're expecting, there's already been, I think, 5 filed. We're expecting around 20 to be filed this year. But in one state that we're working in, the legislator, ran it by the Right to Life group there in that state. And just this morning, they sent over and said, like, well, here's why we oppose this bill, because, prosecutes women. And they said, quote, this bill would be a public relations nightmare and simply provide grist to the mill of our opponents that we want to prosecute women. And they had a whole lot more to say. But my response to that kind of argument is we've got to stop letting the people who want to murder babies dictate to us what our public policy should be. Right. And that's the problem with a lot of times we conservatives, we Republicans, we just like to we react. They can like play us. Right. They just say like, well, you're extremists. Oh, no, we're not extreme. We don't actually believe in that. Right. All they have to do is call us names, like you're talking about, emotional sabotage and all that. All they have to do is call us names, and we just, we play to their fiddle. And what we have to do is be consistent. They're being consistent and saying, listen, it's a clump of cells. It's not a baby. And even if it is a baby, the mom's rights trumps baby's rights. So it just needs to be a total free for all. They're being consistent with that. Our side is saying that life begins at conception, and it's a human being from conception. But then we're not willing to act like it by protecting them with the same laws protecting all other human beings. So we got to stop that. And the Right to Life groups need to get out of the way and get on board with equal protection.
Is that the number one objection is, oh, you guys are seeking to prosecute women? Is there any other one? Or is that just the main thing?
That's number one. Yeah.
So then what they've uncovered, is our ability to really care about life. What they've absolutely uncovered is that we don't hold to our convictions as much as we say we do, because we are not willing to fight for that. Right? It's like, no, the life is so valuable that if you take it, somebody's blood's got to be spilled.
Well, and also how easy we are, how manipulatable we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to remember, like, God was serious about this. I was just reading with David, and was it 2 Samuel, where they are going through a famine, and David is like, I better go seek the Lord to figure out why we have a famine going on. Now, we don't ever think like that nowadays. We go through a famine and we got to get production up. David stopped and said, wait a second.
Let's get a stimulus bill.
God ain't happy. That's right. Let's go talk to God and see what he got to say. And he comes back and he tells David, hey, remember the Gibeonites? You ain't restored them. Justice hasn't been done to the Gibeonites. And this whole thing was like there was blood guilt in the land. That's and you got to remember where blood guilt comes from. It comes from the place there is no justice for a dead person between the people in the city. And since nobody is taking responsibility for this, I'm going to judge your land. So you need to go and you need to get some justice done before I come back and heal the land from the famine. And so if God is that concerned about justice, and we're not willing to say, no, this is actually where we want the fight. We want the fight to be, if you commit a murder, we will come for you. And we don't care who you are. You don't get to squash this.
I also think that, it's there's this like massive momentum in this Trump moment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really, really, I mean, so I agree on the principles, everything everybody's just laid out in terms of like, are we going to be consistent or not? Are we going to totally agree. But it's like, it's wild that then just tactically for us, for pro-lifers to say, okay, we got Roe struck down, don't move.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
freeze.
Red
light, green light.
Don't say anything. Don't say anything. It's like that's like almost like the exact opposite of this whole like Trump phenom. Like the whole thing is like, okay, so they've been transing our kids. They're doing mastectomies on 12-year-old girls. They're giving little boys hormone block, whatever, like all this stuff, and people are outraged. We're like, and they're chopping up little babies, and they're flushing them down the toilet.
Yeah.
Like they're dumping them in trash cans. They're selling their body parts. I mean, and it's like I think this is actually a moment for that.
Yeah,
it's like people are actually waking up, and these establishment people who are like, no, don't say anything. It might be bad rhetoric. Or I was like, I mean, I understand some people have, and I'm not talking about the pro-life establishment that's getting in the way. I can understand certain people that have run a particular play, are holding particular land and saying, all right, you go do take the other hill.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we don't all have time to run all the plays. And so I'm respect Brandon, you run yours, do it consistently. And other people are going to hold other things. But it's another thing entirely though, for everybody to say like, this is not the moment for pursuit.
Yeah.
This would be a PR nightmare.
Like Dagon, Dagon fell down and we're like, whoa, don't move.
He fell down. Good.
If we say anything or mock him, this would be a PR nightmare.
And I was like, no. Like, this is the moment to stand up and dance on his grave.
That's
like,
right.
your God has nothing. He fell down. I just think it's nuts that we wouldn't think of this moment as the moment to pursue.
Pushing him
to pursue.
And think about this too. Like, they're calling us the extremists.
And we believe it.
Yeah,
it's not that they're calling it us, that we believe that.
Babies down the toilet. You're the one selling kidneys. You're the one murdering babies, and we're the extremists.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we saw these videos.
David
Dalayden, and how much money you can get for these baby parts. And I mean, it's like, I think this is a moment to run it all back up the flagpole and say, like, people. It's not only are they transing your kids, they've been murdering your kids.
Yeah.
We've been murdering our own kids.
Yeah.
And this like we've been talking a little bit too about how just God I'm considering this moment as a reprieve from God.
Yeah.
God is allowing us to breathe for a second.
Yeah.
But it really isn't the same thing as repentance.
Right.
Repentance means turning around and going back to the way. Repentance means acknowledging the sin, like Brad was just saying a minute ago. It's naming the sin that you've committed before God and before your fellow man, getting forgiveness. And I think that's what we really have to be praying for. But you don't use the reprieve to say, don't push it. This is the moment to go in and say like, but this is murder.
Strike the ground again.
Yeah. Strike the ground again. Anyways.
So gentlemen, if people want to, let's start in Texas here. If people send their money, if they want to go and look at the bill or be supportive to you and what you're trying to do, how can they do that if they live in Texas?
Thank you so much. We are going to file the bill next week, so it's not actually filed yet. It'll be filed next week. They can follow me on X at Brent Money. I'll be posting about what's happening there. There's going to be a rally day at the Capitol here in a few weeks. Where people from all over Texas will come and not just have a rally, but also spend time engaging and talking with their representatives. I've been very encouraged since I've been here at how many fruitful conversations I've had with representatives. And I think if this is an issue that your audience feels passionate about, they should call their own representative first. Start with the people that represent them, and say, this is important to me. And they may not have every answer. You don't have to go into every conversation knowing the answer to every question, but they can refer people to Bradley. They can refer people to me and just say, hey, I really want you to sit down with Brent Money and talk with him about his bill. It's an important bill. I think that we can make more progress here than has ever been made in Texas toward this issue, and really having a conversation that allows people to start moving that Overton window, understanding that that murder for anyone is murder for everyone. We don't get to decide. Once God creates that life, it's his, and we don't get to take it. And so I think anybody that's engaged on that level, I would love to have their support.
Senator Shippey?
The one thing that I'm asking a lot of Christians here in Idaho to do, sending letters. I've got 30 some letters right here, probably, that they've sent to a number of the members or all the members, I think, on the Senate State Affairs Committee, and then a lot of the senators as well. I've gotten probably 50 so far. Christians are really stepping up, and it's been a huge encouragement, sending letters and urging the senators to support Shippey's bill of equal protection. I would say I've been extremely disappointed, of course, with the pro-life groups. Was told something similar earlier or yesterday, that I needed to stand down. We need to just hold the line. Don't move. Don't try to move forward, because we're going to lose ground. I would say I would have appreciated help from Idaho Family Policy Center. They're going to remain neutral on this. I'm really disappointed in that there is a senator here willing to stand up and do the hard thing and run a bill of equal protection, and to have them stay neutral on this is pretty disappointing for me, because I know they've got a lot of political clout around here, and they agree with me principally on this. I've had conversations with them, and so if you guys have any sway at all with them, it's that would, their help would be much appreciated. But so that's been disappointing that they haven't been willing to step up, because I know that they have the same positions principally. It's just politically, apparently, we're different. But definitely writing letters is huge in helping me further this legislation. So what is a
letter?
So
what do you do with that?
You send it to people. You send it to people. You put
like
your address. You put your address on the envelope.
Email,
like
I know,
but in paper.
Text message, I know.
Is that
Paper, I don't know.
Is that more effective than an email?
We get 300 emails a day, but we get 5 or 6 letters a day, and so to have letters are so much more personal. A handwritten envelope, I'm going to open it and I'm going to read it. If somebody's taken the time to put together a letter, and beyond the fact that it is putting pressure. These letters are written and sent in the presence of God, and they will testify against those who ignore the truth. They will stand as a testimony against them. Your emails will too, of course.
I was just going to ask, does email do that too? Because I'm just wondering.
Emails might get lost in the
paper.
Emails will get lost in the mix.
So you won't open my emails, but a piece of paper. I see now. That's why people don't want to work with you. Right there. That's it. I figured it out. Bradley, I'm going to give you the last word, man.
This is something that I appreciate what you were saying. I mean, I almost said preach, when you were talking earlier about the blood of the innocent cries out to the ground for God's justice. In each of these bills, there's 3 purposes. Number one is to teach, right? Have the didactic, the law's a tutor to teach society. Here's when life begins. Here's the value we place on it. And then to deter, right? You don't agree? Oh, and you want to go forward with that? Well, there's penalties attached. Okay, those penalties then restrain evil. That's the purpose of the law, right? Then if people do go through with it, then there's justice. And God says that there has to be justice. And God says if the people of the land close their eyes when someone commits child sacrifice and they don't provide justice, then God's going to judge the person who's doing child sacrifice, and then he's going to judge the people of the land who tolerated it. And so our nation's under judgment right now. We're seeing it on a lot of issues. There is a reprieve on a lot of things. Praise God for that. But that's just going to condemn us even more if we don't take advantage of it, right? If we don't take advantage of this reprieve and press this issue to provide justice, to deter murder, and to teach society when life begins and how much it matters, and that is created in the image of God. That's what we've got to be doing.
Bradley, next time we have you on, I expect about 3 more kids. So
I'll work on that.
Don't let us down.
Appreciate you, gentlemen. God bless you guys.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Lagavulin time.
All right.
For the throat.
Do you find yourself turning on the news and feeling hopeless? Woke agendas, open borders, inflation, the list goes on. There's something you can do. Buy from companies that believe what you and I believe. We need to stick together now more than ever. And there has been one company willing to stand with you since 2012. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They offer the very best nationwide 4G and 5G coverage on all networks.
And LTE. I don't know why they do that.
In fact, they use the same towers as the major carriers. Patriot Mobile has service plans to fit any budget, and their 100% US-based customer support team provides exceptional customer support. More importantly, Patriot Mobile shares your values and supports organizations fighting for religious freedom, your constitutional rights, the sanctity of life, and our veteran and first responder heroes. Switch to Patriot Mobile now and get free activation with the offer code CrossPolitics. We go to Patriot Mobile, put in CrossPolitic, and then
you go to patriotmobile.com/CrossPolitics.
Or you can go to patriotmobile.com/CrossPolitics, because that's what I was going to say in just a second when I read it, right when I got there. Use promo code CrossPolitic. Oh, here we go.
Psalm 76, right?
Psalm 76. Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry.
You got it.
I need to. Oh, I need a little.
Wet your whistle a little bit there.
Wet my whistle. Here we go. You needed to wet your whistle. You've been over there. You're hacking over there, man.
That was the spirit of the demon trying to hinder me from speaking. I rebuke you.
Psalm 76 says, "In Judah is God known. His name is great in Israel. In Salem also is his tabernacle, his dwelling place in Zion. There he brake the arrows of the bow, the shield, the sword, the battle. Selah. Thou art more glorious and excellent than the mountains of prey. The stout-hearted are spoiled, they have slept their sleep, and none of the men of might have found their hands. At thy rebuke, O God of Jacob, both the chariot and the horse are cast into a dead sleep. Thou, even thou art to be feared. And who may stand in thy sight when once thou art angry? Thou didst cause judgment to be heard from heaven. The earth feared and was still. When God arose to judgment to save all the meek of the earth, Selah. Surely the wrath of man shall praise thee. The remainder of wrath shalt thou restrain. Vow and pay unto the Lord your God. Let all that be around him bring presents unto him that ought to be feared. He shall cut off the spirit of princes. He is terrible to the kings of the earth." Now, first of all, let's simply note that the modern church does not sing enough battle songs. The modern church does not sing enough.
Do they sing any
war songs? And that is because the church has largely abandoned singing psalms. But the psalms are God's favorite songs, his favorite prayers. And we've largely abandoned them because they are not what we think of as worship songs.
That's a good point, Pastor.
But that's like a woman giving her husband a sewing machine or knitting needles. Well, I suppose there may be some male seamsters out there. The gift would largely be a dud because it isn't actually thoughtful. It's based entirely on what a woman thinks she would like to have.
Well, 2025 is a little different these days.
And therefore, I'm trying to give him a benefit of the doubt. But it assumes that's what her husband would like because that's what she would like. Now, for the record, women are generally a lot more thoughtful than this. And men are probably more likely to be the lunkheads in this scenario, right? The guy who gives his wife the shotgun because that's what he would want. But with regard to worship, the church is the bride of Christ and Jesus is our Lord. So in the same way that most women would be utterly horrified at the thought of being so thoughtless and inconsiderate in giving gifts to their husband, the church ought to be horrified at our sorry excuses for worship. God said, "These are the prayers I love to hear. These are the songs I love you to bring to me. They bring me the greatest glory." And then we, as the modern church, said, "No, we know better than you, God. We must sing Hillsong." But is it any wonder that we refuse to sing the war songs of God and Christians cannot stand before their enemies? We are largely cowards and fools. And with very few exceptions, our enemies constantly outmaneuver us and put us to shame. There are far more professing Bible-believing Christians in this land than LGBT extremists. Far more. But they have run circles around us. And when we seriously look at the battlefield, we're like Israel cowering before Goliath, right? Planned Parenthood and wokeness and COVID mandates and whatever else it is, taunting us, taunting God's people. And many Christians run and hide. We've had very few Davids who said that we should take them down because they are not merely taunting us, they are taunting the living God. This psalm says that God fights his enemies. He is excellent in battle. He does not miss any of his targets. He sends them down into the sleep of death, and he disarms all the mighty men who fight against him. He throws down the pride of princes. He defends the meek and the humble. He makes even kings tremble. Who dares defy him? Let all men bow before him. We need to sing psalms like this because we need these instincts in our bones. The New Testament says that we should sing psalms so that the word of God will dwell in us richly. But remember that the word of God is a sword, the sword of the Spirit. The modern evangelical church has determined to fight the rainbow Gestapo with the Nerf sword of praise songs. But we have the sword of the Spirit right here. We have the sword of the Spirit.
Yes.
We all saw the shots of the looks on President Trump's face and J.D. Vance's wrinkled brow at the smarmy drivel of the priestess in the National Cathedral yesterday, right? You remember that? You guys saw all the shots, right? There's Trump, and he's like trying to keep a straight face. Vance is wrinkled. He's like, how much longer, right? During this, the drivel of the priestess, the Muslim call for demons. And thank God for the common sense instincts of our president and vice president.
Yeah.
But let's be frank. There are many modern evangelical churches that might have a slightly more biblical message for Trump and Vance. But I suspect that their worship would be just as cringy.
Ouch.
When the worship pastor got up and started lisping about Jesus as his boyfriend and tried to get Trump to join in some kind of spiritual masturbation, I would hope we would get the same looks from Trump and Vance about our worship, a bunch of modern evangelical worship. We need to recover biblical worship. And that means recovering the Psalms. The Psalms are the war songs of the church, the battle hymns of the armies of God. Sing psalms like Psalm 76. Sing about God putting his enemies to death. Sing about judges and presidents being brought low and trembling before the Lamb who is slain, because they most certainly will.
Cheers to the King.
Cheers to the King.
Yes.
Cheers.
Yeah, it was good, Pastor. Well, if you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic.
That's me. I'm Ellie. Don't feel bad. It's okay. It was a long time ago. 1962. I just thought maybe you don't know about me. My parents didn't want me anyway. The doctors worked with scientists, and they took my organs out as soon as I was aborted. It had to be done right away because the organs need to be fresh. It's okay. It wasn't just me. There were 32 of us. They sent our organs to the United States for the experiments. It was my lung they ended up using. Fetal cell line WI38. 38 because that's how much experiments they did on us. Fetal cell lines are used for all kinds of things, like vaccines. Mine was used to make MMR. You probably gave that one to your baby. I was one of the first fetal cell lines, but there's lots more from lots more babies. It's okay. I just thought maybe you haven't heard of us.
Hello, I'm David. I was killed a few years after Ellie. It's okay. The doctor said my mom had psychiatric reasons to not want me. My lung made MRC5. 5 because it took 5 babies. Perhaps you had my shots? Rabies, polio, chickenpox.
Heck, 293 came from me. I'm Joanna. Did you hear about me? They used my cell line just now for the COVID vaccines. Heck, human embryonic kidney. But I wasn't an embryo. I was 3 months gestation. It's okay. No one knows how many babies it took for Heck 293. But there was 293 experiments. So it was a lot of babies. And no pain medication. That would ruin the cells. It's okay.
I'm Jordan. They used my cell line to help with the COVID vaccines as well.
Percy 6. They took my eyes.
It's okay.
I'm Bo. In 2015, China tried something new for me and 8 other babies. It's called water bag abortion. To keep us alive as long as possible so the organs will be fresh. My lung made the Wolvax 2 cell line. I'm not going to be the last one, though. There's going to be more after me. And me. And me.
And me.
And me. It's okay.
It's okay.
We just thought you ought to know.
Experiments were being performed on near-term alive aborted babies who were not even afforded the mercy of anesthetic as they writhed and cried in agony. And when their usefulness had expired, they were executed and discarded as garbage.
It's okay.